Hello and welcome to The World Today on Channels Television. I am Anne Nwawado right here in Lagos. Coming up on the program, video emerges showing Gabonese President Ali Bongo begging to be freed hours after the country's military took over political power. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu and other world leaders concerned about another coup in Africa. Welcome again, everyone. We're beginning with a video that has leaked showing the Gabonese President Ali Bongo, who is currently under house arrest, begging the people to make some noise so that he will be free. The now ousted president is speaking in English while asking for help. Mr. Bongo has ruled the country for 14 years following the demise of his father, Omar Bongo, in 2009. Together, both have ruled for a solid 53 years. Ali Bongo also has his wife, son and daughters also serving in government as ministers. Also more about the man, Ali Bongo. He was born Alien Bernard Bongo in neighboring Congo-Brazzaville back in February 1959. He was a one-time funk singer who stepped into his father's shoes to continue his family's 50-year rule. He's seen by some as a spoiled playboy prince who sees ruling the oil-rich country as his birthright, while others view him as a reformer who has tried to diversify the economy and who was voted into power democratically by the masses. Throughout his entire time in office, President Bongo's legitimacy has been questioned by his opponents, with allegations of fraud following his 2016 election win. He faced calls to step down following a period of ill health back in 2018, which resulted in a failed coup. Let's now show you the video of the ousted president, Ali Bongo, begging for people to make noise for him to be freed.
Ondimba, president of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence, and nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you. Thank you.
The president's appeal for intervention appears lost on the people of Gabon, who have been out on the streets of the second-largest city, Port-Gentil, celebrating his ouster. Just like Niger, the people appear to support the military takeover. The video from earlier today shows hundreds of people celebrating not only in Port-Gentil, but in the capital, Libreville. The military officers who made the coup announcement late at night said they represented the armed forces. They declared on television that election results had been cancelled and borders were closed and state institutions all dissolved. Let's catch up to speed. Let's tell you more about this and what has been going on in Gabon. A dozen mutinous soldiers appeared on national television announcing the cancellation of the recent election results and the dissolution of all the institutions of the republic. The announcement comes after President Ali Bongo Ondimba was re-elected for a third term in an election the opposition described as a fraud orchestrated by the ruling party. The 64-year-old is set to be under house arrest, surrounded by his family and doctors. But the soldiers are also saying that one of the leader's son was under arrest for treason.
30 août 2023.
This is the moment a group of senior Gabonese military officers appeared on national television and announced they had seized power minutes after the state election body announced President Ali Bongo had won a third term.
Au nom du peuple gabonais.
Appearing on national television, the Gabonese military officers said they represented all security and defense forces in the Central African nation, adding that the election results were cancelled and all borders were closed until further notice.
30 août 2023.
On this day, August 30th, 2023, we, the Defense and Security Forces, meeting within the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, on behalf of the Gabonese people and guarantor of the protection of institutions, have decided to defend peace by putting an end to the current regime. The general elections of August 26, 2023, as well as the truncated results, are cancelled. The borders are closed until further notice. All institutions of the Republic are dissolved.
Sont annulés. Les frontières sont fermées jusqu'à nouvel ordre.
People took to the streets in celebration in support of the seizure of power, with some holding the Gabonese flags as military vehicles drove by in the Gabonese city of Port Gentil. Meanwhile, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell says defense ministers are to discuss the situation in Gabon, adding that a coup, if confirmed, would heap more instability on the region.
Well, the news are confused. I got the news this morning early. If this is confirmed, it's another military coup, which increased instability in the whole region. I cannot say more because I don't have more information, but certainly is an issue that will be put on the table when we will discuss.
How could the EU react?
Look, the whole area, starting with Central African Republic, then Mali, then Burkina Faso, now Niger, maybe Gabon, it's in a very difficult situation, and certainly the ministers, today defense ministers and tomorrow foreign affairs ministers, have to have a deep thought on what is going on there and how we can improve our policy with respect to these countries. This is a big issue for Europe.
Gabon is one of Africa's major oil producers and a member nation of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Gabon's coup leaders say deposed President Ali Bongo Ondimba is under house arrest and one of his sons has been arrested for treason. However, his overthrow would end his family's 56-year-old on power in Gabon. And if successful, the coup would represent the 8th in West and Central Africa since 2020. Coups in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Chad and Niger have undermined democratic progress in recent years. The coup in Gabon has drawn reactions from leaders on the African continent, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu leading the pack. The president, through his special advisor on media and publicity, Ajurin Gelale, expressed the president's belief that the rule of law and a faithful recourse to a constitutional resolution of electoral dispute must not be allowed to perish in Africa. He also said the president, as a man, has made significant personal sacrifices in his own life in the cause of advancing and defending democracy, which is of unwavering belief that power belongs to the hands of Africa's great people and not in the barrel of a loaded gun. Gelale adds that the president is working very closely and continues to communicate with other heads of state in the African Union towards a comprehensive consensus on the next step forward with respect to how the power in Gabon will play out and how the continent will respond to contagious autocracy seen across the continent.
The president as a man who has made significant personal sacrifices in his own life in the cause of advancing and defending democracy, is of the unwavering belief that power belongs in the hands of Africa's great people and not in the barrel of a loaded gun. The President affirms that the rule of law and a faithful recourse to constitutional resolutions and instruments of electoral dispute resolution must not at any time be allowed to perish from our great continent. To this end, the President is working very closely and continuing to communicate with other heads of state in the African Union toward a comprehensive consensus on the next steps forward with respect to how the crisis in Gabon will play out, into how the continent will respond to the contagion of autocracy we are seeing spread across our continent.
Well, the European Union today discussed the recent coup in Africa and the bloc's support for Ukraine. The foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, noted that information about developments in Gabon is still confusing, but stressed that if a military coup is confirmed, it will increase instability in the whole region. And here's the foreign policy chief after their discussion today.
The ministers reiterated our will to support African solutions for African problems. And it means that we will support ECOWAS. We have expressed this will from the first moment of the coup. It's up to them to take initiatives and decisions in order to counter this military coup. And we will follow, trying to implement the same kind of sanctions that they have decided. We are moving forward for an autonomous sanctions regime to take measures against the putschists. Work has already started, and tomorrow the Foreign Affairs Ministers will advance on that.
That's the foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell. To other stories now. For the president of France, Gabon's former colonial leader, he condemned the coup in the country and wants the election results in Gabon to be respected. The government spokesperson, Olivier Véran, addressing press today, said France condemns the military coup d'etat that is taking place in Gabon. France is closely monitoring the development of that situation on the ground and reaffirms its wish for election results, once known, to be respected. If the coup in Gabon is successful, it will be the 8th in West and Central Africa since 2020. The latest, of course, being Niger Republic in July this year. And interestingly, China has called on all sides to settle their differences peacefully through dialogue and restore normal order at an early date. And this is coming from the Foreign Ministry spokesman, Wang Wenbin, reacting to questions about the coup in Gabon. The ousted Gabonese president, Ali Bongo Ondimba, was in China in July this year. Both countries decided to upgrade the comprehensive cooperative partnership between the two to a comprehensive strategic cooperation partnership. Since the establishment of diplomatic relations 5 decades ago, the two countries have consolidated their partnerships over multitudes of frontiers under the framework of the Forum on Africa-China Cooperation. Well, let's talk more about this and our lead story today for the coup in Gabon. Let's bring in a seasoned senior journalist with 33 years under his belt. As Gabriel Baglo, a Togolese who now lives in Senegal. He's also a political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us on The World today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. From everything that you know, your experience and all of that, you have covered these countries in the region for a long time. What do you make of this coup, this recent one in Gabon?
Thank you for having me. This coup could have been avoided. For me, it was predictable. This is a family that's been in power since 1967. So for 46 years now, father was there until 2009 when he passed. Then the son also took over in 2009. That is 14 years now. And all the elections were rigged. And then always after elections, you have a number of problems and crises and killings and so on and so forth. So the last election on Saturday, the writings were already on the walls, you know, so it was predictable that they were rigging the elections, they cut internet, so the country was completely closed. There was no more access to the country. But this time, apparently, the presidential guard, decided to take over. So what is happening now was predictable. So now we have a military taking over, and the general Oligui Nguema is the cousin to the president. So it looked like a palace coup, but we will see in the coming days how that will evolve. But I really appreciate the position of the president of Nigeria, because in these type of situations, you need to be very careful, because to understand the dynamics on the ground before you take a position. This coup was predictable, and it would have been avoided if the African Union and African leaders really took it seriously and then really got in and tried to mediate before this happens.
But what does this situation portend for Gabon and indeed the region, the latest to join the trend of coups in Africa?
No, if you look at it properly, you will see that all these coups are happening in Francophone Africa. Most of these countries are former French colonies. That means independence in the 60s was not real independence. France, the country left, but was still around. You will also notice that most of the leaders of those Francophone countries came to power by the support of the colonial master. So most of them will be running their countries, not taking into account the concerns of their populations, but rather the wish of the colonial master. So you will see that the British left and the left, you know, you rarely see a British barracks or military in Africa. But most of these countries like Gabon, you have a military base in Gabon. You have a military base in Cote d'Ivoire. You have a military base in Senegal. You have a military base, you had it, all these countries, that means there was still a grip on these countries. Now it's like the populations are becoming more and more aware of their situation and plight. And also with the magics of this of social media, the populations are now well aware of what they have, the wealth that they have. How can we be so rich and be poor? So you also have these young people now getting into the army. If you look at some of the military, they are young people. That means they understand the context and they want to run the countries differently. So you will see that the dynamics is more and more in the Francophone countries.
But what is the message you're gleaning from all of this for other African leaders citing tight power? Do you think that they are watching and learning from what is happening in other African countries?
I don't think they are learning, especially the Francophone countries. They still believe that the former colonial master will keep them tight into power. Now, the situation is that you also have the army that is going to help you. These are young people who also understand the dynamics and who are now conniving with the people. So you will see that all these coups d'etats, the population are supporting the army. That's how it's become very difficult. That means the leaders should learn that, in fact, this from 2020, the dynamics have changed. Any leader who wants to keep to power and change the constitution to stay tight in power will not survive. So the lessons to learn is that you do your 2 terms and you go. And also during your tenure, please look at your people and listen to your people. Listen to what your people is saying. That's why I appreciate the new president of Nigeria. You know, I find him trying to listen to his people. And also the decision on Niger, he sent the document, he sent the plea or the request to the parliament. When the parliament said, we don't want you to go to Niger, he listened. So we need leaders who listen to their people, who listen to their parliament, who listen to their institutions. It's only through that we can avoid this type of coups. It's not because these countries don't want democracy. No, but this democracy is not benefiting them. It's like it's a democracy for the former colonial masters, not for them. So our leaders will learn those lessons.
All right, but I mean, obviously, democratic governance is already a problem in Africa. Seeing all of these coups, most of them successful, or the interpretation of it, what do you feel leaders must do to improve the situation, to avoid issues like this so that it doesn't spread across other countries in Africa?
Is to listen to your people. Is to listen to your people. I am still talking of Nigeria. Last time the president said they were going to put 8,000 palliative naira to the situation, to the people, and there was an outbreak. He withdraw. You need to listen to your people. If we want to, today, from now in Africa, from 2020 onward, any president who wants to lead his country peacefully, listen to your people. You don't need to be listening to World Bank, to IMF, to United States president, to the UK president, but listen to your people and address their needs. That's the only way you can survive. Otherwise, you cannot.
But from your experience, do you believe civilian rule can return to Gabon and even Niger Republic?
Of course. It's not that these people don't want democracy. If you have in power leaders who listen to the people, that's what people want. It's not that people want military rule, no. But they want leaders who are addressing their needs, who are listening to them. So the only thing you can solve this is to bring into power after the transitions. I think the putschists in Niger are talking of 3 years. I don't know how many years the one in Gabon want to stay on. But if you bring to power people who listen, leaders who listen to their people. So I think we all want civilian rules. I think civilian rule can come back in Niger and in Gabon.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel Baglo, a Togolese who had lived in Senegal. He's a political analyst, a seasoned senior journalist with 33 years under his belt. Thank you so much for your contribution on the program.
Thank you, too. Thank you, too. Thank you.
Well, another country that has expressed concern about the situation in Gabon is Russia, with Moscow saying now that it has received with concern reports of a sharp deterioration in the internal situation in the friendly African country. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Russia continues to closely monitor the development of the situation, hoping for its speedy stabilization. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, said that Moscow is closely following the situation. But Russia is looking to build up diplomatic and trade ties with Africa, and the President, Vladimir Putin, hosted African leaders for a summit last month. Welcome back. Let's talk weather now. Hurricane Idalia has made landfall in Florida as an extremely dangerous Category 3 storm after millions of residents evacuated or hunkered down in homes and shelters in anticipation of a life-threatening storm surge. Video footage from Tampa Bay posted on social media platform X by an eyewitness showed a flooded road after heavy rain downpours. Drawing strength from the Gulf of Mexico's warm waters, Idalia unleashed destructive winds and torrential downpour that were forecast to cause coastal flooding of up to 16 feet deep along the state's Gulf Coast. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says Idalia is extremely dangerous, adding that the catastrophic storm surge and the damaging winds are still ongoing. Idalia is predicted to strike the vulnerable coastal city in the Big Bend, which hasn't seen a major storm since Hurricane Easy in 1950. Big Bend sits roughly where the north-south portion of the state's peninsula bends towards the east-west portion of the land, curving from along the Appalachian Bay. For the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, he is now asking people to hunker down and stay out of danger. He says the National Hurricane Center anticipated a storm surge of up to 16 feet, and that's about 4.9 meters in the Big Bend region in North Florida, which includes the state capital. Millions of Florida residents secured their boats, their properties, while seeking higher grounds on Wednesday as Idalia escalated to an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane. Evacuation orders had been issued in 28 out of Florida's 67 counties as of late Tuesday. The majority of the state, along with parts of Georgia and South Carolina, is currently under storm warnings or advisories.
Stay tuned tomorrow morning. We'll have an update on that, and so we'll see. Now, with respect to Tropical Storm Idalia, it is currently 80 miles off the coast of Cozumel with 35-mile-per-hour winds. It will become a hurricane by late Tuesday afternoon. Landfall is currently expected along the Big Bend region on Wednesday, and it could arrive at the state of Florida as strong as a Category 2 hurricane. The storms, of course, as we know, these things can wobble, so Floridians along our Gulf Coast should be vigilant, even if you're currently outside the cone, and indeed you could see impacts if you are in a place that's outside the cone.
Locals in Bradenton are bracing themselves for the arrival of Hurricane Idalia as the powerful storm makes landfall in Florida. Rain pouring in deserted streets as strong winds shook trees in the city south of Tampa Bay. Sandbags could be seen outside businesses as locals prepared for the storm, which has been described as unprecedented and life-threatening by the U.S. National Hurricane Center.
I've lived here since 1969, and we have these little feeder bands come in and different weather, and we never know what's going to happen, but we all prepare for the worst and try to protect our property and our town. It can be sunny, and then all of a sudden it can be the worst. So you just have to prepare for what you are going to adventure.
Our Washington correspondent Maria Bird joins us now. Hello, Maria. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Today.
Good evening.
All right. How much of a damage is Hurricane Idalia? How much of a damage has it caused in Florida so far?
Well, there are torrential winds, and the flooding is the #1 concern for most of the areas that are very low, and they're, kind of at the sea level. That is one of the major concerns. And some of the tropical storm winds that are coming in and the waves that are coming in and the tides that are coming in are potentially making it very dangerous for those who are living right there at that western coastline. It's about 200 miles of the Florida western coast that are being impacted by the storm.
Yesterday, authorities were encouraging people to listen closely to local authorities for updates. They were also working on evacuations. But how much of this was realized before the storm hit?
Well, Florida is an area that obviously is hit quite frequently this time of year between August and November with hurricanes. And so individuals oftentimes decide to shelter in place. But there was a good number of individuals in the targeted regions that were expected to have a lot of power outages, a lot of wind damage, a lot of trees down, and obviously the flooding. Because the other challenge it's experiencing is that because of the winds and some of the weather conditions, there could have been small tornadoes occurring as well. So where people would typically go to the highest level of ground in a hurricane because of the flooding, with tornadoes, you typically want to go to the lowest area in your home. And so that meant people had to be on the main level. So with those two potential weather conditions occurring simultaneously, many individuals did evacuate some of those regions where they were looking to have the greatest target, because it went from a Category 4 storm overnight to now being at a Category 1 level hurricane.
The President, Joe Biden, has received much criticism when the Maui fires happened for the delay and even for lack of empathy to what the people were going through at that time. Has he said anything regarding the situation in Florida so far?
Yes, and the president, as you stated, obviously he is watching this very closely, and he has, obviously put any resources that are going to be available. He's approved federal disaster emergency for Florida. He has spoke obviously with the governor in regards to this, and so he is watching this and will be sending FEMA to the region if necessary, which we can expect that will definitely be something that will be necessary for this type of storm.
And the governor, on the other hand, has been at the forefront and the center regarding the storm. Are there any updates regarding FEMA activities in that region?
Yes, the governor, as you said, has been very vocal as it relates to the storm. I think that his goal is to be front and center. And as you mentioned earlier, some of the negative feedback as it relates to Maui, how the governor handled it and also how the president handled that. He is trying to definitely be ahead of some of those challenges. And especially as you look at the region, it's going 200 miles. So a good bit of the state is being impacted by this storm. And also the governor in Tallahassee, which is very unprecedented because they're more inland, is also experiencing some very torrential tropical storms. And so they too are experiencing power outages. So he is in the midst of experiencing the storm as well.
More storms in the horizon headed towards the United States. Have any announcements been made about any other thing heading there?
There are other small tropical storms that have not yet made the radar as far as hurricanes hitting the region. We can expect, though, that between now and November, we will see many tropical storms because of the weather, the conditions that we're experiencing. Obviously, global warming is greatly impacting, and the warm temperatures of the water in that southern region, specifically as you look at the Florida and obviously the Panhandle and throughout the Alabama and Louisiana regions.
All right, thank you very much. Washington correspondent Maria Bird, thank you for your contribution on The World Today. U.S. Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh has announced a new $250 million aid package for Ukraine, including ammunition for HIMARS artillery rocket systems. And the aid package was first announced earlier in the day by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The latest round of military support for Ukraine was issued under the presidential drawdown authority. A directive from U.S. President Joe Biden had drawn supplies from the Department of Defense's inventories, and to date, the Biden administration has supplied more than $43 billion in assistance since the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Today, the department also announced an additional security assistance to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs. This announcement is the Biden administration's 45th drawdown of equipment to be provided from DoD inventories to Ukraine since August 2021. It includes additional air defense and artillery munitions, mine-clearing equipment, medical vehicles, and other equipment to help Ukraine counter Russia's ongoing war of aggression. The U.S. will continue to work with its allies and partners to provide Ukraine with the capabilities to meet its immediate battlefield needs and longer-term security assistance requirements. So in terms of how much is left, I would have to take that question and get back to you. I just don't have that on hand in terms of the funds that are left. You might remember that this was a recalculation done of previous PDAs. So because it was a recalculation, this would not expire at the end of the fiscal year. We're confident that we will have enough money to meet Ukraine's need through the fiscal year, but as you know, there's been a request for a supplemental, and we're hopeful that the Congress will approve a supplemental package for Ukraine. In terms of what the Ukrainians are doing in their counteroffensive, we're seeing that they have continued to make slow progress and are continuing in this fight as the months continue. And so I would just leave it at that and direct you to the Ukrainians for further comment.
The British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has said that it foresees opportunities between the UK and China despite areas of disagreement. Both leaders met in the Chinese capital, Beijing, today. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi affirmed Beijing's dedication to fostering a stable and mutually beneficial relationship with the United Kingdom, while Mr. Cleverly echoed the same sentiment, adding that the positive Sino-British relationship could benefit the wider world. Earlier in the day, Cleverly told broadcasters that London wants a pragmatic relationship with China, but it will remain clear-eyed about areas of disagreement. The Foreign Secretary has argued that it will be a mistake to isolate the world's second-largest economy or tackle climate change without its input. But some conservative lawmakers have said the trip looks like an expression of British weakness.
You have always, in my experience, listened carefully and professionally when I have spoken about the areas where we don't have agreements. But I've also been able to speak about the opportunities that I foresee, opportunities for Chinese people, for British people, but also the opportunities that could benefit the wider world if we can ensure that our bilateral relationship is positive.
And over in Israel, the military says its troops shot a Palestinian motorist who rammed into them near the West Bank city of Hebron today, injuring a soldier. The Palestinian's condition was not immediately published. The incident followed months of intensifying Israeli military raids on West Bank areas where Palestinian gunmen have been increasingly assertive in a challenge to the internationally backed Palestinian Authority. Hundreds of Palestinians, mostly fighters, but many civilians as well, have been killed in Israeli raids since the latest wave of violence erupted in early 2022. In the same period, dozens of Israelis have been killed in shootings, stabbings, or car ramming attacks by Palestinians. Violence by Israeli settlers against Palestinians have also surged. The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Richard Montgomery, has asked Nigerian recipients of the Chevening Scholarship to aspire to do great things and create a positive change in the country. At a pre-departure reception held in Abuja, he advised the scholars to take advantage of the opportunity to aim for excellence and great ambassadors to be great ambassadors for Nigeria in the United Kingdom. Our correspondent Victor Matthias reports.
I was like, can you interpret this one?
Beaming with smiles and excitement, these are Nigerians set to embark on a journey many only dream of. They have scaled all hurdles to emerge recipients of the prestigious and highly competitive UK Chevening and Commonwealth scholarships and are gathered for a pre-departure reception.
Diversity of expertise.
The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Richard Montgomery, commends their hard work, perseverance and resilience evident during the selection process and challenges them to aim for excellence.
I really want you to aspire to do great things. Great things in whatever line of work you choose. It could be a private initiative, it could be for the public good. But if I look back at some of the alumni of the Commonwealth and Chevening schemes, there are people who've done great things, who've achieved high office, or done amazing things in their chosen area of specialism. And so I want you to aspire to use the opportunity to do great things and come back and help Nigeria move forward.
Certificates are then handed to the scholars to seal the deal and confirm their place in the 2023 cohort, followed by some words of wisdom.
I encourage them to get involved in community life in the universities where they're going to. And I suggested that they might want to understand the UK. We have our challenges as well as our opportunities.
A big opportunity, and they must make use of the opportunity they have. The scholarship changed my life for the better, and they must be good ambassador of this great nation of ours and come back and imbibe what they've learned.
Some of the recipients share their expectations and plans for when they conclude their studies.
I'm looking forward to experiencing the UK and the world at large, and I'm looking forward to coming back to Nigeria to impact tremendously in my area.
I'm actually looking forward to get knowledge on geohazards, the latest technologies in geohazards, to study volcanology, volcanogeodesy, and apply it to our system here in Nigeria.
You want to work around improving maternal and child health outcomes, so I really look forward to coming back and doing so much with my NGO.
Looking to form lifetime connections. I'm looking to expand my niche. I'm looking to gain a global platform to do the work that I already do.
Now in its 40th year globally and 39th year in Nigeria, Chevening scholarships are awarded yearly to individuals who demonstrate intellectual ability, leadership potential, and most importantly, a commitment to the development of their home country. As these scholars begin their journey, the society will patiently await their return and imminent contribution to the growth and development of Nigeria. Victor Matthias, Channels Television News.
It's that season again, as it happens every year, when good health and ripe tomatoes are not found in soups and stews, but on the streets of Spain for the Tomatina Festival, where in the eastern town of Bunol, revelers hurled tons of overripe tomatoes at each other at the annual Tomatina Festival. Truckloads loaded with tomatoes drove through the main streets, distributing the sappy projectiles, while partygoers threw them and covered each other in red juice. Tomatina is said to have originated from the spontaneous burst up amongst villagers back in 1945. It was banned for a while during the 1950s at the height of General Francisco Franco's dictatorship, but it survived again, gaining popularity across Spain in the 1980s. And today, it draws large crowds of visitors from abroad as well as Spaniards. Almost a decade ago, the organizers had to limit the capacity and started selling tickets as the festival was already too crowded. It's always interesting to see that annual festival, but that's it on The World Today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne.